I want you to close your eyes for a second. Well, not if you're driving, but just picture the absolute perfect leader in a crisis,
Uh,
or, the perfect athlete, standing over the ball, 0 seconds on the clock. Or even just that person you wish you could be when your inbox is exploding and everything is just on fire.
hmm.
What do they look like in your head?
I know exactly the image you're conjuring up.
Yeah.
It's the Clint Eastwood squint, right?
Totally.
It's the slow heart rate. It's James Bond ordering a drink while the villain, blows up the embassy behind him. It's this picture of total icy detachment.
Exactly. It's the Iceman archetype.
Yeah.
We have this deep-seated cultural obsession with the idea that to be elite in these ice-stick situations, you essentially have to lobotomize your own humanity.
Right. We have to give a robot.
A machine that just processes data inputs without the messy interference of fear or panic or doubt.
And if I can be blunt right out of the gate here, that is the single most dangerous myth in performance psychology. It's not just wrong, it is actively destructive.
Why distract?
Because here is the biological reality, and you just can't get around this. You are not a robot. You are a sack of meat and chemicals. And when the pressure hits, you are going to be flooded with cortisol, with adrenaline, with norepinephrine. That is hard-coded into your DNA.
So if your entire strategy for handling a crisis is, I just won't feel anything, then you've already lost.
You've lost before you even started. Because biology always wins. You cannot outwill your own endocrine system. The people who actually survive and thrive in chaos, whether that's in a boardroom, a nuclear bunker, or a rugby pitch, they aren't emotionless.
In fact, they're probably feeling it more.
Oh, way more. If you hook them up to biometric monitors, they are arguably feeling more intensity than the average person. But, and this is the whole point of our deep dive today, they have a system for processing it.
And that's really what we're unpacking. We are taking a sledgehammer to this myth of the robot. We want to redefine what cool under pressure actually means.
Yes.
It's not about the absence of feeling. It's about the absence of obedience to that feeling.
That's a great way to put it. It's the distinction between feeling the fear and letting the fear drive the car. Those are two totally different neurological states.
And to get to the bottom of this, we aren't just going to speak in broad platitudes about, mindfulness or being present. We have a stack of source material today that is, honestly, it's terrifying in places.
It really is.
We're looking at 3 distinct case studies. We're calling them the 3 guides that cover the 3 heaviest types of pressure a human being can face.
And what's so interesting is that while the stakes in these stories are global, I mean, literally world-ending in one case, the type of pressure is universal. It's exactly what you, our listeners, deal with, just at a massive, massive scale.
Okay, so let's map this out for everyone. First, we're looking at business and reputation pressure. This is a big one. We're going back to 1991 to watch Warren Buffett step into the absolute wreckage of Salomon Brothers.
Oh, what a mess.
To save a Wall Street bank from a scandal that should have just turned it into dust.
And this is the classic ethical pressure cooker, right? When your career, your net worth, your public image are all on the line and everyone around you is in a full-blown panic, how do you stop the bleeding?
Then we dial it up to the absolute max. We're talking about survival pressure, existential dread. We're going to look at the story of Stanislav Petrov. A man sitting in a bunker outside Moscow in 1983, staring at a screen telling him the United States has just launched 5 nuclear missiles at the Soviet Union.
The ultimate test of cognitive control. I mean, can you imagine? When the machine says, the world is ending, and all your training says, push the button, how do you find the mental space to just say, wait?
And finally, from the existential, we go to performance pressure. We're heading to the 2003 Rugby World Cup final. Johnny Wilkinson, tie game, seconds on the clock, the weight of an entire nation on his shoulders.
So different, but the same biological response.
How do you execute a complex fine motor skill when your body just wants to shake apart?
So we have the boardroom, the bunker, and the pitch. But the mission here isn't just to recount some cool stories. We want to extract a user manual for chaos.
A user manual for chaos. I like that.
We want to figure out the specific cognitive mechanisms these men use to bypass their natural, panicked biological responses. Fear, defensiveness, tunnel vision, all of it.
And our promise to you is that by the end of this, you will have specific tools. We're calling them the newspaper test, labeling the alarm, and narrowing the moment so you can handle everything from a rude email to a truly career-defining crisis.
Okay, let's do it.
So let's not waste any more time. Let's go to Wall Street, 1991.
The era of liar's poker. The Wild West of finance.
Right, exactly. And let's set the scene properly because the context here is everything. It's September 1991. Salomon Brothers isn't just a bank. It is, for all intents and purposes, the bank.
A powerhouse. An 81-year-old institution. They are the kings of the bond market.
Yeah.
They're aggressive, they're wildly profitable, and honestly, they think they're invincible.
And that arrogance is so key to the story. They had a trader named Paul Moser who was the head of their government bond desk. And Moser, he basically figured out a way to game the system.
So the U.S. Treasury had these rules about how much of a single bond auction any one firm could buy. It was to prevent a monopoly, to keep the market fair. Moser essentially looked at that rule and said, I don't care.
He just ignored it.
Completely. He started submitting false bids under customers' names to corner the market on certain treasury notes. He was building a monopoly in secret.
And this wasn't like a clerical error or a one-off mistake. This was systemic, calculated fraud. And, eventually the Treasury found out.
And when the Treasury finds out you are rigging the market for United States government debt, they don't just send you a strongly worded letter.
No, they don't just give you a fine. They threaten to ban you from all future auctions. And for a bond trading firm, being banned from Treasury options is a death sentence.
It's like telling a fish it's banned from water. The business ceases to exist overnight.
So the news breaks, and the atmosphere inside Salomon Brothers isn't just tense. The sources describe it as apocalyptic. You have to imagine the trading floor. These are guys, and they were mostly guys.
Almost entirely guys.
Who are used to being masters of the universe. And suddenly, the stock is plummeting, clients are pulling their money out in droves, and Congress is dragging the CEO, John Gutfreund, onto live television to be publicly humiliated.
And inside the offices, it's a total panic room. The emotional menu is fully stocked. You've got pure, unadulterated panic. Am I going to have a job on Monday?
Yeah.
Is my life savings tied up in company stock about to be worth zero?
Then you've got defensiveness. Hey, I didn't know Moser was doing that. That was his desk. Why am I being punished for this?
And a lot of anger. A lot of anger. The regulators are overreacting. The media's out to get us. This is a win moment.
This is the crucial point, right? When an organization or even just a person is under that kind of siege, the natural human instinct is to circle the wagons.
It's to hide. It's to go into a bunker. It's to minimize, oh, it's not that bad, or externalize, it's their fault, not ours.
Which makes perfect sense from a survival perspective. If you're bleeding, you want to cover the wound. You don't want to expose it to salt and air.
Exactly. It feels protective in the moment. It feels safe. But in a reputation crisis, secrecy is poison. It is the single worst thing you can do.
Why?
Because secrecy creates a vacuum. And what fills a vacuum? Rumors, speculation, and fear. Always. Delayed truth acts like compound interest on a scandal. The longer you wait to tell the ugly truth, the higher the penalty becomes. Every hour you wait, the damage multiplies.
Enter Warren Buffett. He was a major investor in Salomon, held a huge chunk of preferred stock. He's watching this thing go down in flames, and he realizes his investment is about to be worthless.
Most sane people would be selling their shares and running for the hills.
Not Buffett. He steps in as interim chairman. He is literally walking into a burning building, and he knows he has to stop the panic, but he doesn't do it with some rah-rah, let's get back to making money speech.
No. He understood something fundamental.
Yeah.
He knew that the only asset Salomon had left was not its cash, not its buildings, not its traders. It was its credibility.
If the market didn't trust them.
They were zero. Done. So he goes before Congress, and this is legendary footage if you've never seen it. He's so calm, and he issues a directive to his employees. It's a mission statement for the crisis.
I have the quote right here. It's probably the most famous and most important line in the history of crisis management. He says, "Lose money for the firm, and I will be understanding. Lose a shred of reputation for the firm, and I will be ruthless."
Let's really break that down. Lose money, I'm understanding. Lose reputation, I'm ruthless. It seems obvious now in hindsight.
Sure.
But at the time, on Wall Street in 1991, that was a radical, revolutionary statement. He's completely flipping the hierarchy of value.
How so?
He's saying that money is a renewable resource. You can have a bad quarter. You can lose $1 billion on a bad trade. It hurts, but you can earn it back. Reputation, however, is non-renewable. It's like virginity or oxygen. Once it's gone, it is gone forever. You can't earn back trust once it's been fundamentally broken.
But here's the thing, and I want to play devil's advocate for a second. It's easy to say integrity matters when you're a billionaire folk hero like Warren Buffett.
Okay.
But for the guy on the trading desk who is worried about his bonus or making his mortgage payment, isn't that just a nice slogan? How does a quote actually change behavior when the adrenaline is pumping and your career is on the line?
That is the million-dollar question.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. Philosophy doesn't change behavior under pressure. Systems do. And Buffett didn't just give them a slogan. He gave them a cognitive tool, a system to override their impulse to hide.
He gave them the newspaper test.
He gave them the newspaper test. He told the congressional committee, and more importantly, he told his employees. I want employees to ask themselves whether they are willing to have any contemplated act appear the next day on the front page of their local paper.
And not just any paper.
No, to be read by their spouses, children, and friends, with the reporting done by an informed and critical reporter.
It's a visualization exercise, but a really specific one. The critical reporter part is key. This isn't a puff piece.
It's what we call a forcing function. See, when we are tempted to do something sketchy, or even just to hide a mistake because we're embarrassed, our brain does something incredible. It rationalizes.
Oh, it's the best at it.
The best in the universe.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves, well, technically it's legal or nobody will ever notice, or, my personal favorite, I'll fix it before anyone finds out. Those are internal private monologues.
And they are so comforting. They lower our anxiety in the moment.
Right. The newspaper test rips you out of that private comfort zone. It's a cognitive slap in the face. It forces you to view your action from a third-person public perspective. It forces you to imagine the shame of explaining it to your kids. And shame is a much, much more powerful motivator than any compliance manual.
So it's about introducing friction. You're making it harder to do the easy, wrong thing.
Exactly. Ethics isn't just about having a good soul or being a good person. It's about building friction into your decision-making. You need mental systems that make it difficult to do the dumb thing when your adrenaline is high and you're in fight or flight mode.
So if your integrity or your company's culture only holds up when things are calm and the sun is shining,
You don't have integrity. You don't have a culture. You have a fair weather habit, a weather pattern. Buffett was building a storm shelter, a system that worked precisely because it was designed for a hurricane.
I think this is so unbelievably relevant right now. We see companies and public figures trying to spin their way out of crises every single week, controlling the narrative.
And it almost always blows up in their face. Why? Because they are trying to negotiate with the truth. Buffett's core principle was that you cannot negotiate with the truth. You have to get it all out right away, no matter how ugly it is, because the cover-up is always, always worse than the crime.
Okay, so let's make this super actionable for the listener. Most of us are not dealing with treasury bond auctions, thankfully.
Hopefully not.
But we deal with these little reputation moments all the time. Do I tell the client the project is a week late now, or do I wait and hope I can catch up? Do I admit to my boss I completely messed up the budget numbers? How do we apply the newspaper test in the real world in our own lives?
Okay, step one is to actually visualize the headline. Don't just think, is this wrong? That's too abstract. Think, if my partner or my mentor read a detailed description of this on Twitter tomorrow, what would their face look like? How would I explain it over dinner? If that thought makes your stomach physically drop, you stop. Full stop.
I really like the idea you brought up in the research about separating legal from trust.
Oh, this is a huge distinction. We so often ask, is it allowed? Am I breaking a rule? That's the lawyer's question. It's the lowest possible bar. The leader's question is, will this action cost me trust?
Even if it's perfectly legal.
Especially then. Just because something is technically allowed doesn't mean it passes the newspaper test. There's a huge space between legal and honorable. You have to live in that space.
There's also a tactical move here from the source material called the reputation veto. I love this.
Yes. So the core idea is that when you are under pressure, your judgment is compromised. We've established that. You are in survival mode. So you give one person in your life, a trusted peer, a mentor, a spouse, the power of veto.
How does that work in practice?
You call them. You lay out this situation honestly. And you agree beforehand, when you're calm, that if they say, this fails the newspaper test, don't do it, their vote is final. No arguments. You outsource the sanity check because your own brain is an unreliable narrator in the heat of the moment.
It's like having a designated driver for your ethics.
Precisely. Because when you're drunk on adrenaline and fear, you should not be driving the decision-making car. You're going to crash.
And the last piece of this is about confession. Buffett basically said, come to me with a problem early and we'll handle it. Hide it and you're fired.
He called concealment the compounding interest of scandal. He wanted to make it cheap to surface problems immediately. He created a system where the reward for honesty was help, and the penalty for hiding was exile.
Okay, so that's guide number 1, the newspaper test. It's about using the forcing function of public scrutiny as a filter to bypass our own private, self-serving rationalizations.
A brilliant, simple system for ethical pressure.
All right, now let's dial up the pressure cooker. We are leaving Wall Street and going to a place where money, reputation, bonuses, none of it matters.
We're going to the Serpukov 15 bunker outside Moscow. And this story, honestly, every time I revisit the source material for this, I get a cold sweat. Because we are talking about what was, very likely, the single most dangerous moment in the entire history of human civilization.
It's September 26, 1983. And let's context this again. This isn't just some random day in the Cold War. Tensions were at an absolute fever pitch.
The highest they'd been since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Just 3 weeks earlier, the Soviets had shot down a Korean civilian airliner, KAL-007, killing everyone on board, including a sitting U.S. congressman. President Reagan is on TV calling the Soviet Union the evil empire. Everyone on both sides is paranoid, jumpy, and waiting for the spark.
Everyone is on a hair trigger. And Stanislav Petrov is a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces. He's 44 years old. He's an educated engineer, not a, gung-ho military ideologue. And on this particular night, he is the duty officer at Serpukov 15.
And what is that?
It's the command center for Oko, which means eye in Russian. It was their brand new, cutting-edge early warning satellite network. His job is to watch the eye in the sky.
I want to slow down and really try to inhabit that bunker for a moment. It's just after midnight. The accounts describe it as this dimly lit concrete room filled with cigarette smoke, banks of glowing green monitors, and dozens of soldiers and analysts just going through their checklists.
It's quiet, it's routine, it's boring. And then the siren goes off.
And it's not a subtle beep. It is a deafening, piercing siren specifically designed to wake the dead and trigger a massive adrenaline response. And the entire room is suddenly bathed in a pulsing red light.
On the main wall, there's a massive screen that displays a map and the status of the U.S. missile fields. And suddenly, in giant red letters, a single word flashes up. LAUNCH.
My heart rate goes up just saying that word.
Imagine being there. The system reports that the United States has launched a Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile. Destination: the Soviet Union.
Now, let's be very clear about Petrov's job description. He is not the general secretary. He doesn't decide whether or not to go to war. His job is to observe the machine and report the data up the chain of command to the Kremlin. That's it.
And the Soviet doctrine at the time was launch on warning. This is a crucial detail. That means you do not wait for the nukes to land on Moscow to confirm it was real. You launch your own missiles while the enemies are still in the air.
It's a retaliate first policy.
It's a use 'em or lose 'em policy. So if Petrov picks up that direct phone line to his superiors and says, yes, confirm it's a launch, the Soviet leadership, who are already paranoid and ready for a fight, will very likely initiate a full-scale retaliation.
We are talking about the end of the world. Hundreds of millions of deaths within 30 minutes. Game over for civilization.
And here's where that myth of the robot gets really interesting. A robot would have followed the protocol. A perfect, emotionless machine. The computer says launch. The robot reports launch. Mission accomplished.
But Petrov is staring at this screen. His adrenaline must be completely off the charts. His heart is probably trying to beat its way out of his chest. But he hesitates. Why?
This is where we get into the psychology of what's called automation bias. It's a well-documented phenomenon. Humans have a powerful tendency to trust computers and automated systems more than they trust themselves.
Especially when the system is complex and the stakes are high.
Right. The pressure on Petrov to just agree with the multi-billion ruble computer system was immense. Think about his personal calculus. If he doesn't report it, and he's right, he saves the world, but no one will ever know. He'll probably get reprimanded for not following procedure.
But if he doesn't report it and he's wrong...
He's the traitor who let his country get wiped out without firing a single shot. His family, his city, everything, gone. And it's his fault.
It's an impossible, unimaginable gamble. And then, while he's trying to process all this, the screen updates.
It gets worse. The system doesn't just show one missile. A second light comes on, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. The system is now confidently reporting 5 nuclear missiles are inbound.
The room is in chaos. His subordinates are looking at him. Some are screaming at him, waiting for the order to report up the chain.
And this is the moment, this is the split second where he has to choose between instinct and logic, between panic and process. He engages in what we're calling a sanity check.
He starts asking questions.
He forces his brain to override the panic. He later said he had a funny feeling in his gut. But he didn't trust the feeling. He trusted logic. He thinks, okay, let's treat this like an engineering problem. If the Americans are going to start World War III, why would they launch only 5 missiles?
Right. If you're going to strike first, you strike with overwhelming force.
Exactly. Military doctrine on both sides of the time said a first strike must be a decapitation strike. You launch hundreds, if not thousands, of missiles simultaneously to wipe out the enemy's leadership and their ability to respond. You don't poke a sleeping bear with 5 little pins, you drop a mountain on it.
Militarily, it just didn't make any sense.
It was illogical. That was his first clue. What else? He knew this OCO satellite system was new. It had been rushed into service and was known to have bugs. He had a healthy professional skepticism of the technology. He later called it raw.
And crucially, he looked for corroboration.
This is the key step. The satellites look down from space and see the infrared flash of a missile launch. But there's a second system, ground-based radar. That radar should pick up the missiles as they come over the horizon. He checked with the ground radar operators.
And what did they see?
Nothing. Empty skies. So he has a direct conflict in his data. Space says Armageddon, ground says all clear.
And he had to make the call.
He picked up that phone to the Kremlin. Everyone in the room is holding their breath. And he reported, false alarm. He classified the system's warning as a malfunction.
Can you imagine the sweat on his forehead holding that phone? He's betting the fate of the entire planet on a hunch about ground radar and a logical deduction about military strategy.
And then came the worst part. He had to wait for 20 agonizing minutes.
Yeah.
If he was wrong, the first explosions would happen any second. He just stood there, staring at the clock, counting down the time until impact. And nothing happened. The sun rose. It turned out the satellite software was flawed. It had mistaken the sun's reflection off high-altitude clouds for the thermal signature of 5 missile engines.
Sunlight. We almost blew up the planet because of sunlight on a cloud.
It's utterly terrifying. But let's look at the mechanism here, because it's so important. Petrov wasn't calm. He was terrified. But he engaged a specific neurological process. In psychology, we call this affect labeling and cognitive reappraisal.
Okay, let's get technical for a second. The critique we often hear about this stuff is, oh, name it to tame it, that's just a cute rhyme. But there's real neuroscience here, isn't there?
Is hard science. There was a landmark study by Matthew Lieberman at UCLA. They put people in fMRI machines, the brain scanners, and showed them terrifying or angry images. And as you'd expect, their amygdalas, the brain's little fear and alarm centers, lit up like Christmas trees.
The panic button was pushed.
The panic button was pushed. But then they asked the participants to simply choose a word to label the emotion they were feeling, to just say to themselves, this is fear or this is anger. And the moment they did that, the activity in the amygdala plummeted.
Why? What's the connection between putting a word on it and the brain's fear response?
It's like a seesaw effect in the brain. When you engage the brain's language centers to find a label for an emotion, you are activating a part of your brain called the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, the RVLPFC.
The thinking part of the brain.
Exactly. And that region has a direct inhibitory effect on the amygdala. You are mechanically, physically forcing the blood flow and energy from the panic brain to the thinking brain. You are literally cooling down the alarm system by turning on the logic system.
So Petrov asking, why are there only 5? Wasn't just him thinking, it was him physically shifting his brain activity out of the emotional red zone so he could actually process the data in front of him.
Precisely. He created a gap. The siren was the stimulus. The phone call was the response. Most people and most systems merge those two into one event. Siren leads to panic, leads to action. Petrov used logic to wedge that gap open. He refused to let the signal grab the steering wheel.
So, bringing this back to the user manual for our listeners, we don't have nuclear codes, thank God.
No?
But we have sirens all the time. A text from your spouse that just says, we need to talk. A client email written in all caps. A massive sudden drop in the stock market. These things trigger the exact same biological response.
The brain does not know the difference between a missile and a mean tweet. It just knows threat. So you need to label the alarm toolkit.
Okay, step 1 is the label itself.
Right. When that surge of adrenaline or anger hits, you have to tag it verbally, even if it's just in your head. I am feeling a spike of adrenaline. I am feeling a threat story emerge. You don't need to write a whole journal entry. You just need a 2-word tag. That split second of linguistic processing is the brake pedal for your amygdala.
Then you separate story from fact.
This is exactly what Petrov did. Fact. The screen says launch. Story. The world is ending and it's all over. Those are not the same thing. In your life, it might be. Fact. My boss sent me a one-word email saying urgent. Story. She hates my work and is going to fire me. You have to mentally or even physically write them down in two separate columns. It stops the story from hijacking your reality.
And I really, really like the Petrov question.
What would confirm this story? This is the sanity check. If you believe the world is ending or you're about to be fired, ask yourself, what other independent evidence would I need to see to be 100% sure this is true? If you can't find the ground radar confirmation, you do not push the button, you wait.
It's the delay and verify rule. We should make this a rule for life. If your emotional intensity is above a 7 out of 10, you are legally forbidden from acting.
Forbidden.
Yeah.
You do not send the angry email.
Yeah.
You do not sell the crypto in a panic. You do not quit the job in a huff. You verify first. You wait for the ground radar to confirm what the satellite is telling you.
It's actually amazing to see the parallel here. Buffett uses a hypothetical newspaper to create a gap for ethical decisions. Petrov uses logic and verification to create a gap for survival decisions. It's all about refusing the immediate emotional reaction.
Refusing the shortcut. That's the theme that keeps coming up. The shortcut is almost always the wrong path.
All right, so we've saved the bank and we saved the world. Now let's talk about something that feels surprisingly just as heavy when you're in the middle of it: winning.
Yes.
We're moving to guide number 3, Johnny Wilkinson and the 2003 Rugby World Cup.
And this is a totally different flavor of pressure. This isn't about avoiding a negative outcome like a scandal or a nuclear war. This is about achieving a positive one. It's performance pressure. The world is watching, and you have to execute a precise physical skill right now.
So let's go to Sydney, Australia. It's November 2003. It's the World Cup final. England versus the host nation, Australia. This is the biggest stage in the sport, bar none.
And the context matters here, too. England had a long, painful history of choking in big moments. They were famous for being the team that always looked good on paper, but failed when it mattered most. The press called them bottlers.
So the pressure on this team was generational, and the game itself was an absolute grind. It had been pouring rain earlier, the field is wet and muddy, everyone is exhausted. It goes into extra time. 99 minutes of brutal physical collision have already gone by. The score is locked at 17-17.
In rugby, if it stays a tie after extra time, it goes to a sudden death kickoff, which is basically a lottery. England knows they need to win it now, and there are only 26 seconds left on the clock.
The English team drives the ball down the field. They're setting up for one final play, a drop goal. For those who don't know rugby, this is where a player in open play drops the ball onto the ground and kicks it on the half volley through the goalposts. It's worth 3 points. It requires perfect timing and technique.
And the ball comes to Johnny Wilkinson. He's the fly half. He's the team's kicker. He's the golden boy of English rugby. If he misses this kick, he's the guy who cost England the World Cup. If he scores, he's a national hero. Forever. Immortal.
Now let's stop the tape right there. Imagine the internal monologue of a normal human being in that exact moment. The inner narrator. What is it screaming?
Oh, it's a cacophony. Don't miss. This is it. Imagine the headline if I shank this. My legs feel like lead. The whole country is watching. Don't screw this up.
It's a storm of consequences. It's all about if I do X, then Y will happen.
Exactly. And focusing on consequences is the absolute kiss of death for high performance. In performance psychology, we call this zooming out. When you zoom out, you are looking at the trophy, the fans, the newspaper headlines, the legacy. You are introducing fear into the equation because you can't control the outcome.
You can't control if a gust of wind takes the ball wide.
You can't control if an Australian player breaks through and blocks the kick. Focusing on the outcome paralyzes you because it highlights everything you can't control.
So what did Wilkinson do differently?
The England coach at the time, Sir Clive Woodward, was obsessed with this concept he called TCUP. TCUP. It stands for Thinking Correctly Under Pressure.
Sounds very polite in English.
It sounds polite, but the application is brutal. It's about total, ruthless attention control. Wilkinson later described this moment in his autobiography. He wasn't thinking about the World Cup trophy. He wasn't thinking about the 15 million people watching on TV back home. He shifted his focus entirely, 100%, to the biomechanics of the kick.
He zoomed in.
He zoomed in. He narrowed his entire universe down to a 3-foot bubble around his body. He focused on a simple, repeatable process: plant the non-kicking foot next to the ball, drop the ball straight down, swing the leg through smoothly, follow through toward the target. That's it.
He said something that I found really profound. He said the moment felt surreal and quiet. He said, I knew I couldn't miss. And that sounds so arrogant on the surface, but it wasn't arrogance, was it?
No, not at all. It was the absence of noise. Think about your brain like a computer with limited RAM. When you fill your working memory with technical process cues, plant, drop, swing, there is literally no cognitive space left for the fear to exist.
It crowds it out.
It crowds it out
Don't.
completely. The fear lives in the future, in the consequences. The process lives in the absolute present. By locking himself in the present moment, he evicted the fear from his mind.
And he hits the kick. With his right foot, which was his weaker foot, by the way, it sails through the posts. England wins the World Cup. Pandemonium.
But the real victory wasn't the kick going over. The victory was the mental discipline to banish the consequences from his mind for those 3 critical seconds.
So this gives us our third and final tool for the user manual, narrow the moment.
Right. If Buffett's test is about preparing for the crisis, and Petrov's method is about pausing during the trigger, Wilkinson's technique is about how to execute when it's time to act.
How does a normal listener apply this? Let's say you're walking into a huge salary negotiation, or you're about to give a best man speech at a wedding. You aren't kicking a rugby ball, but your hands are shaking and your heart is pounding.
First, you implement a consequence ban. This is a hard, non-negotiable rule. In the final minutes before the high-pressure event, say the 10 minutes before you walk into that negotiation, you are forbidden from thinking about or using outcome words.
What do you mean by outcome words?
No winning, no getting the raise, no nailing the speech, no success, no failure. Those words are poison because they pull you into the future.
So if I'm standing outside the conference room thinking, I really hope I get that 10% raise, I'm actually hurting my chances.
Yes, because you are focusing on a future you cannot control, which generates anxiety. Instead, you have to focus on the inputs you can control. I will speak slowly and clearly. I will maintain good posture. I will present my 3 key data points. Focus on the doing, not the getting.
You ban the future. I love that. It reminds me of the 1Q concept from sports psychology.
It's the same principle. Under pressure, your brain's RAM is full. You cannot remember a 10-point checklist for your presentation. You need 1 cue, a single, simple technical anchor. For Wilkinson, it might have been quiet upper body. For a public speaker, it might be plant your feet. If you can anchor your entire mind on one small, controllable technical thing, it creates that flow state. It blocks out all the internal and external noise.
And what about routines? You see tennis players like Nadal with his bottle placement, or basketball players who bounce the ball exactly 3 times before a free throw. Is that just superstition?
No, it's a psychological firewall. A pre-performance routine is a signal to your brain. It says, we are now leaving the worry zone and we are entering the execution zone. It's a Pavlovian trigger. If you do the exact same 3 deep breaths before every difficult email you have to send, eventually just doing those 3 breaths will automatically lower your cortisol levels. You are hacking your own biology to create a state of readiness.
And just briefly, what if you miss? What if you shank the kick? Or you stumble over your words in the first sentence of the speech?
You need a post-miss protocol. Most people spiral. One mistake becomes a catastrophe. Oh, I'm an idiot, I'm ruining the whole thing. An elite performer has a pre-planned rule. You give yourself a strict time limit, say 10 seconds or 30 seconds. In that window, you could be furious. You can curse under your breath. You can hate yourself. But when that imaginary timer hits 0, you flush it. It's gone. You reset to neutral and focus on the next play.
It prevents one mistake from becoming a chain reaction of failure.
Exactly. You contain the error.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've been deep in the weeds with these 3 very different, very intense stories. But I want to pull back now and look at the whole picture. We have Buffett with preparation, Petrov with the pause, and Wilkinson with execution. How do these connect into a unified, coherent system for the listener?
If you look closely, they form a perfect timeline of a crisis. It's not just 3 random tools. It's a chronological user manual.
Walk us through that timeline. How does it flow?
Okay. Phase 1 is preparation. That's Warren Buffett. This happens before the crisis. You can't invent a moral code or an ethical system when the building is on fire. You have to build the newspaper test into your thinking before you need it. You have to decide your lines in the sand when you are calm, so you don't have to negotiate with yourself when you are panicked.
So preparation is about pre-deciding.
It's about building the ethical firewall in advance. Then comes phase 2, the trigger. That's Stanislav Petrov. The siren goes off. The bad news hits your inbox. The fear spikes. What do? You don't react. You label the alarm. You engage the logic brain. You separate story from fact. You verify the data. You buy yourself time to think.
And that pause leads to phase 3, execution.
That's Johnny Wilkinson. You've verified the threat, you've made your decision, you know what you need to do. Now it's time to perform under pressure. In that moment, you narrow the moment. You implement the consequence ban. You zoom in on the process, on your one cue. You execute the task without being distracted by the potential outcome.
It's a complete loop. Prep, pause, execute. It covers the entire life cycle of a high-stakes event.
It does.
And there's a common thread I'm seeing here that runs through all three stories. In every single case, the hero of the story refused to take the easy way out. They refused the shortcut.
That is the key insight of this entire deep dive. The shortcut is always the emotional, impulsive reaction. For Salomon Brothers, the shortcut was secrecy. Let's just hide it and hope it goes away. Buffett refused.
For Petrov, the shortcut was blind obedience. The computer says so. My job is to follow the rules. He refused.
For Wilkinson, the shortcut was worry. Let me just obsess over the win, what happens if I miss? He refused. They all consciously chose the harder, more disciplined path.
They all refused to let the immediate emotional spike dictate the long-term outcome.
And that's what true strength is. Real strength isn't about not feeling the urge to take the shortcut. It's about having built a system in advance that makes the shortcut impossible, or at least very difficult to take.
So for our listener, the learner, as we call them, why does all this matter on a random Tuesday morning when they're just trying to get through their email?
Because we are living in an era of emotional overload. We talk all the time about information overload, but I think emotional overload is actually worse. We are constantly being triggered by 24-hour news, social media outrage, constant workplace stress. Our amygdalas are just, they're frying.
They're burned out.
They're burned out. These tools, the newspaper test, labeling, narrowing, they are filters for that overload. They help you turn panic from a command into just another data point.
Panic is data, not a command. I think that's the bumper sticker for this entire deep dive.
It really is. The feeling of panic is just your body saying, hey, pay attention, something important is happening. It's not your body saying, hey, run screaming from the room and set your hair on fire.
You have to learn to listen to the data without obeying the command.
That's it.
So let's wrap this up with our Try This Now segment. We promised 3 actionable micro steps at the beginning. Let's give them to the listener so they can start practicing this afternoon.
Okay, micro step 1. Write the headline. Take 5 minutes. Think of a recurring pressure point in your professional life, a difficult client, a temptation to cut a corner on a report. Actually, open a document and write down the newspaper headline you would hate to see about it. Local manager lies to client about project status. Tape it to your monitor. Create that Buffett-style friction.
Simple. I like it. Micro step 2.
Practice the 10-second label. The next time something small annoys you, someone cuts you off in traffic, you spill your coffee, you get a frustrating comment online, don't just get mad.
Yeah.
Pause for 10 seconds and say, in your head, I am feeling a surge of irritation because my expectation of a smooth morning was violated. Just name it. Feel your brain shift gears. You have to practice on the small stuff so you're ready for the missile launch.
And micro step 3.
Create a ritual. Pick one high-stress task you do every week. Maybe it's your Monday morning team meeting. Create a simple 3-step physical routine you will do right before it starts. For example, 1, take a deep breath. 2, take a sip of water. 3, straighten the notebook on the table in front of you. Do it the exact same way every single time. Build that Wilkinson firewall between your normal state and your performance state.
Simple, actionable, and based on some pretty intense world-changing history.
And I just want to leave the listener with one final provocative thought. We started this episode talking about the myth of the robot. This idea that being emotionless is the ultimate goal. But if you look at these 3 men, Buffett, Petrov, and Wilkinson, were they cold, detached, unfeeling people?
Not at all. Buffett cared deeply, passionately about the firm's reputation and the integrity of the market. Petrov cared about the lives of millions of people he would never meet. Wilkinson cared desperately about his team, his sport, and his country.
Exactly. They didn't succeed because they didn't care. They succeeded because they cared too much to let their own fleeting emotions ruin the outcome. Real emotionless leadership isn't about being a sociopath who doesn't feel anything. It's about caring enough about the mission to put a leash on your own biology.
That's a powerful place to end. It's not about not caring. It's about caring so much that you refuse to let your feelings drive the car.
That's the whole game.
All right. That's our deep dive on the myth of the robot. The next time you see that siren go off, whether it's a nuclear warning or just a passive-aggressive text, remember Petrov, pause, verify, and then remember Wilkinson. Plant, drop, and swing. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.